Welcome to Jung at Harp, episode number 163. Are you living in the wrong paradigm? I'm Kathleen Wiley, a Jungian Psychoanalyst in North Carolina, and I am here with Deborah Henson-Conant, a composer, mentor, creative, coach. We both play the harp, and that's why we call this Jung at Harp. And almost every week we come together with a question that we want to explore. We do not start with answers, but we start with a question. And we trust the art of conversation and the presence of psyche between us and those of you who may join in live with your comments on the platform from which you're viewing us, that answers that might be helpful for our life today, tomorrow, and the next week or two might emerge. So, a curious thing about this topic, are you living in the wrong paradigm? We started out with a conversation about inflammation and how inflammation creates swelling and heat literally in the body. But what does that mean, swelling and heat in our psyche? And that got us to paradigms and what is it that swells up that's the irritant? So, DHC, do you want to jump in here?
Sure, yeah. So this came to me, this question came to me on Thanksgiving. I had a friend visiting and he's been having some trouble with his back. And he told a story about going to the doctor, having a steroid shot, and then coming home and walking 2 miles, which was just an amazing thing. Now, whether he should have done that or not, that's not this question. I was just like, whoa. You can't do something at 10 a.m. You go to the doctor, you get a shot, and you come back at 2 p.m. and you can do it. You did not get any stronger. You did not get any smarter. But what you got was access to your strength. Something gave you access to your strength. Access. And so I started talking a little bit about this to other people, and they were like, oh, yeah. I was like, what do steroids do? And they were like, well, it cuts down on inflammation. And so I thought, wow. And then I started talking to a coach about this, and I was like, do I have, some kind of spiritual inflammation, or the inflammation of belief, or the inflammation of disbelief that would keep me, like, if I'm struggling to do something that I clearly have the ability to do, and yet I'm not doing it? Is there some kind of inflammation of belief there, or disbelief, one or the other? And so I was saying this to Kathleen, and she was like, oh yes, as if you're living in the wrong paradox. And I'm like, what? And so I pass it over to you, Kathleen. What made you think of, well, you said first you talked about a block, and then you talked about living in the wrong paradigm.
Yeah, I was thinking about the image of inflammation where something gets swollen and the swelling then blocks pathways of the flow of other energy that's needed. So the access you're talking about for your friend, my non-scientific way of thinking of that or imaging that is, okay, so the swelling was like crowding out the flow of energy of what was needed for free-flowing movement. So when the swelling went down, it opened up the pathways so the energy could flow freely. So he could physically, in this case, move more freely. And it took me, the idea of inflammation, which I always associate with heat in the body, and indeed that is usually one of the physical manifestations. When there's a physical inflammation, is that area of the body will swell up and it gets hot. It made me think about the alchemical stages of calcination and incineration, and these are two of the processes I talk about in the embodiment circle when you get to the upper spirals. But in calcination, the heat of our emotion, the heat of primitive affect and body activation actually works to destroy an old belief, a false idea, to burn up kind of a repetitive pattern of repeating something that's no longer the truth of who you are, your life now. So the heat in the process of calcination as well as incineration actually burn up that which is false. They burn up that which is too small for the self that you are to be able to manifest. So that's how I got to paradigms, is that it made me think the idea of inflammation and heat There are things in our psyche that need to burn away. And I'm thinking about when people get caught in and act out their anger in rageful ways that they then regret,
Mm.
then usually behind the anger is some unmet need, an acknowledged need that is being overlooked and not dismissed, or it's just split off and people don't know it. So the needed energy to meet that need gets displaced into an anger and rage at someone else or some object in the outside world, or even sometimes one's own self, um, for not meeting the need. But a need can't be met if it's not known and acknowledged.
Yeah, that's, oh, wow. I'm thinking about acknowledgement and how it can sometimes dissolve something. Just being acknowledged can make a difference. But as
Mm-hmm.
you were talking, I was also thinking that one of the places that I noticed this inflammation of belief is in the academy. Right now, people are sharing their final beginning projects,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not supposed to be like final. They're beginning. If you imperfectly complete this quarter, and then we're all looking at what does that completion open up. When you look at this as complete, what does it open up? But some people are not able to take that action, and I totally get it. I get both. I get the ability to take an imperfect action and share it, and what happens out of that, and then just I can't. And
Mm-hmm.
and and it almost seemed like the people who are unable to do it are inflamed with certain ideas about themselves. I'm not good enough. It's not going to be good. I'm going to get. I don't. And they're very amorphous as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm really interested we're talking about inflammation, which is there's heat involved in that.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about burning away, and I just think, I mean, I know nothing about this, but I'm fascinated by it. By how I remember asking my boyfriend in college, who was a physics major, I was like, why do some things burn and other things melt? Like,
Mm.
why do different things have different relationships to heat? And I think what he said was, well, certain things have a higher, you know, combustion, that they just have that higher, they need a higher level. I think he
Mm-hmm.
was implying that everything will eventually burn, but some things will melt first. Whatever, doesn't matter. And things stay. Don't get me started because I know nothing about this, so I'll talk forever about it. Um, but I'm really interested. Let's go back to this subject, this paradigm. Are you in the wrong paradigm? So these people are approaching, okay, and let me say that when people have breakthroughs in playing the harp in the academy, I noticed that sometimes, and it has nothing to do with people getting better, and it has nothing to do with their um, ability. It has to do with their ability to be present. And I know one person said, um, I'm able to play this one chord and I listen to it and I hear the beauty of it. And that becomes my access point.
Mm-hmm.
This is the thing that's really interesting to me. I keep hearing people like that. They don't say that exactly, but that becomes my access point. Being able to hear the beauty of what they're doing. And it's almost as if I can finally hear what I'm doing through that other stuff that's been making all that noise. And I keep coming back to inflammation because I think of that noise as being an amorphous, like, that like holds you in. It's not like anyway. Okay.
But no, I mean, I think what you're saying, I'm following him now in my mind, and I'm going to go off on him and then talk about beauty.
Oh, good. Please.
But yeah, because I'm thinking about how on the tree of life, which is a glyph of out of the Kabbalistic tradition, and it shows the energies that are believed in the system are considered to be the emanations of the divine essence in various forms as they came into the soul of humanity and the world soul. And the central energy, this energy that occupies kind of the center point of the tree, is the sphere of beauty and balance. And it's considered to be the point at which we connect with our, what I'm going to call our divine essence. We connect with that energy that is, it lives on before, during, and after our physical body. Um, and so I think when you connect with the beauty of something and the beauty of the music, the chord, the note that you've just played on the harp, there's something about connecting with the larger self, the divine essence, the totality of who one is that's tapped into the totality of all life. And that's where the greatest flow of energy will always be. Because when we get down into our ego and our persona, and my persona gets, and ego gets into, oh, well, I have to play it this way in order for it to be good enough, or my own, persona and my adaptive self and my fears get activated. Well, if I don't play it just like this, these musicians aren't going to want me to play with them. When those things are activated, we're swollen with those wrong beliefs, that wrong paradigm. The paradigm in this case, perhaps being, in order for my music to be good enough, it has to fit in with, this person's ideal. When we get swollen with that, it again, just like with your friend in the running, it crowds out that flow of energy where we can feel our own beauty and the beauty of our self-expression through the music.
As you talked about that tree, I was like, these are access points. Or I heard the word access points, and I was thinking, you were talking about beauty, and I was thinking that, part of what happens in the academy is that where people are learning things, but they're watching each other's work in process,
Mm-hmm.
which is an incredible gift to get to see somebody else's work in process. However, if we come with a paradigm that we're given in the outside world of assessing, is that good? Is it bad? I liked it better the way she did it before. I like that. I mean, so for example, I have drawings in my house that I did. There's one on the way up to the stairs, and my friends were saying, "Oh, I really love that guy," and I was like, "Yeah, I love that guy too." And then there was another picture of that same guy. I don't even know what he is, some kind of animal, in the other room, who was. Anyway, it was on my phone list, and it was like, "May I take your order?" And my friend, one of my friends said, "Oh, I like the other guy better," and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"It's two guys, One guy is serving me a martini with a bone in it or something, and then the other guy is on the phone or something." You don't have to love. You don't have to go into assessment. So one
Right.
of the biggest things that I do is just give people a new paradigm, which is, if you can look at what other people are doing without assessment,
Right.
then eventually you can apply it to yourself. And if you're really having trouble doing that, you can apply the concept. An access point is, find something to love, find anything, and it shifts the whole thing. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking, and when you talked about beauty, I was like, aha, okay, so this is a paradigm that is an access point
Yes.
that can get through. So I got that we've got a bunch of different metaphors here. We've got the inflammation of, um, but I'm starting to see. So I'd love to come back. Well, I want to see. We have got a paradigm of beauty. Okay. Oh, a
Yeah.
paradigm of beauty where light flows, a path of least resistance. So I feel emotional when I read this. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking, if I use this without saying, well, is the thing I made beautiful?
Right.
But
Right.
if I just say, that is the paradigm that I am standing in as I share this.
Right.
And does that then require trust, that I am trusting that people will experience that part?
Well, I think it's one trust that you will be experiencing that part. and that for people for whom that resonates will experience it. I think once we get into, if I do this, other people are going to experience something, we're going down a slippery slope because we're starting then to get swollen, get inflamed with power drive. And power drive, wanting to have power over another, is going to block the flow of our own beauty because we really don't even have power over ourselves. As a friend of mine used to say, we like to think we're in charge, but the unconscious self is in charge. I mean, right? We don't know what we're going to say till we open our mouth. I mean, we hear it come out. I mean, the unconscious self is in charge. And so when we get swollen with this idea that we're in charge of other people, man, we're really inflamed. We can't control ourselves. I mean, we can influence ourselves, but there's a big difference between influence and control.
I want to go to this thing that John said. And so sometimes when I'm playing music, oh my God, I feel so vulnerable. And I feel so vulnerable if I'm experiencing the beauty of it. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying to a therapist once, I said, if someone walked in when I was experiencing the beauty of what I'm doing or the connection of what I'm doing, I would rather have somebody walk in on me sitting there naked. I feel less vulnerable sitting there naked than I feel vulnerable when I am actually experiencing the beauty of what I'm doing. And if someone were to be like, or like, well, that's out of tune, or I mean, it's so to go to that, and it's making me think, hey, time to go to that space more and more and more and more and get a trust of it.
Yeah. Yeah. You're saying something I think is important, and we could unpack a little bit if we want to, but we also have some comments, which is that when we're vulnerable is really when we feel and express our greatest beauty. Because there isn't anything swollen around it, hiding it. And I'm thinking about what Angeles Arian, who was a cultural anthropologist and spiritual teacher, used to say. She would say, in my vulnerability, my safety lies, or in my defenselessness, my safety lies. And what she meant by that is that when we are defenseless, we're just in our vulnerability, we're who we are. That is when we're truly the safest, because when we're who we are, we're who we are. There isn't judgment of right or wrong, and we get it. I'm not the cup of tea for everybody.
Yeah, it sure doesn't feel, I get that it doesn't feel that way. Wow. I want to pull up some more comments, but I do also want to bring, so my teacher, Tony, who was a physical eloquence about physicalizing, he used to always say, the thing you think you're doing on stage, thing you think you're doing, is just to keep you occupied. The audience just wants to see you. Right. And yet, we can, a paradigm is to hide ourselves through, and I surely look how fast I can play. Blah, 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 blah. And I remember how difficult it was for me to play the Nightingale and to allow it to be simple. And I remember, an incredible conductor saying to me, stop doing anything with that piece. Don't sing it like a child. Don't put anything into it. Don't make anything of it. And how difficult it was to stand in that vulnerability.
Yeah, because it's the truth of your deepest experience. And that's part of why the song is probably your most well-known, or one of your most well-known pieces, right?
Right.
It's because it resonates. There's a beauty of the truth of it that resonates universally.
Right. And it's coming through me instead of me, like you said, trying to control. I love how John says, with a tiny voice, power.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of something that I discovered as a child, and I didn't know how to describe it, with the mirror of me, the mirrorness. I don't know what else to say, but looking for that mirrorness, and then to be willing to share that mirrorness. Right. But okay, Kathleen, but I also love I love the bombast. I had an opportunity this week to do a voiceover thing where I got to be like this really terrible voice. And it was just so fun. And I was working with the director and had the microphone and I was like, like that's the voice they wanted. It's so fun to be big as well as beautiful to be little.
Well, I think again, there's no judgment on being big. There's no judgment on that sensational. It's just a different energy, and it's going to have a different impact on people, and it expresses a different felt sense. I mean, I think if we look at yeah, I mean, there's a comment. It says it's the authenticity of the person in the moment that also brings the energy out. And the reason it caught my eye right now is because I think if one is being sensational or in that kind of creepy old witchy kind of,
that's just one.
Yeah, if there's that kind of energy, it is just one thing. That's the whole point. It can be an authentic expression of that just one energy in the moment that is the appropriate energy for the moment, meaning it's the energy that's grounded in the larger reality. I mean, in this case, it sounds like you were playing a part. So it is again tapping into that too is one strand of the authentic self. But the authentic self is so much more. It's so much more. And where we get in trouble and where it starts, I think, to feel inauthentic and the inflammation and the wrong paradigm set in is when we get identified with just that one strand, just that one strand.
Right. Like being the Jimi Hendrix of the harp. Or, like when.
Yeah, if that's all you are, it leaves out all these other dimensions of the beauty of who you are, not only as a harpist, but as a human being.
Right. It's making me think about like, I know whenever I start having any kind of physical problem, somewhere I got in my head that two things. If it's if my knee hurts, I need to stretch the back of my knee. So there's that thing. But then there's also, I need more movement. Whatever's happening, I am probably constraining myself in some way. This is me. And so I need to get rid of that constriction because that's creating the issue for me. I'm sure it's not always true, but it's sort of my go-to. So I feel like I'm kind of going far afield here, but what I'm hearing is, we came up with the question, are you in the wrong paradigm? And what I'm thinking now is like, whoa, are you getting stuck in paradigms when you can actually have a flow between paradigms, finding access points of beauty and simplicity and tininess and bigness. And all of those are access points to actually being self-expressed as a human being.
Yeah, and if I were going to tie it back in for a minute to Jung's model of the psyche, there is the unconscious self that we are, and there is what he called the self with a capital S, the larger self, and that flows up through the ego and then into personas, which are roles of how we interface with the outside world. Well, persona gets a bad rap. We need persona. I mean, we're here today in our personas, right?
Right.
I mean, you wouldn't want us showing up here in bathing suits and our martinis. I mean, that would be a very different persona for Jung at heart.
I'd love to do that.
But, talk about paradigms.
Now, Kathleen, you've got that in my head.
But what I'm trying to say is I think persona is not a bad thing, but the difference is, are we authentic? Is the persona we're in an authentic, rooted in the larger authenticity of who we are? If we just adopt something that has no resonance inside of us, that's not connected to our own center and beauty, innate beauty, then it's gonna fall flat and not feel good to other people. But if our persona is an expression, it like wells up from that deep well of our own nature, there is an authenticity that we recognize. This is the paradigm, the persona we may be in this moment, but there's so much more behind it.
I'm laughing. Well, first of all, I'm laughing because I'm thinking, left to my own devices, what paradigm, what personas would I impose upon the world? Uh, and and I was thinking, and I just want to pull up that just some of the other comments. Like a lot of times we forget the little inner child, and then. And then this, ever see a cat put itself in a gold fishbowl? Kind of like that, right? That's right. And as you were talking about these different, wait a second, the cat is in the greater paradigm and stuffs itself into a smaller part of it, a mini paradigm, and then it gets stuck, right? And then also, and this is a different. And this is great. So this is a paradigm of being stuck in the gold fishbowl that you tried to get in, which is basically the story of the golden cage, of how Althea gets stuck inside this thing that she's searched her life for. And then the same thing happens to Boris. And then we become marionettes. We become sort of, we're being controlled by that stuff in our head. And I was just thinking as you were talking, as you were talking about different paradigms and being expressed, and I was thinking, I always want to be the tortoise of discontent. This little thing, and it makes me laugh so much. It comes in my head at night, and sometimes I do the day in review of me inside this person. I want like everyone to love the tortoise of discontent, but I often feel that I am imposing the tortoise of discontent on other people, or they're like, hey, wait a minute, that's like this other, I don't know, animal. So what I'm wondering about, so I'm thinking about these three, you're talking about roles and personas. And I'm thinking about the personas that one of the reasons that I wrote Baroque Flamenco was the opportunity to embody a persona. Look, the minute I say it, my whole body just shifts up. Like when I think about, when I got to a certain point of Harp, and I was like, okay, I'm ready. Where's the Paganini violin concerto of the Harp, where I get to really show off? And it was like, it's not there. There's just a bunch of stuff that's super hard. I could never do it. And if I did it, I would look boring. And so I built this piece for myself so I could like, like I could embody this character, this part of my character, without having to go to flamenco school and blah, 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 blah. I just want to be that. Like, we used to be Davy Crockett, or we used to just be Smokey the Bear, or something like that. And I'm thinking about these personas that I get to be as a musician, and that I am trying to share with, the people in the Academy of how they can do that without having to build some huge world, but to actually use the harp as a playground for exploring these personas. Now, where the heck am I going with this, Kathleen?
Well, you just offered us another beautiful paradigm that the harp is a playground. That the harp as a playground for self-expression is a very different paradigm than the idea of the harp as an instrument that has to be mastered a certain way or played a certain way. So the paradigm that I can come to the harp as a playground for my self-expression totally changes everything about the interface between who I am and the harp, the instrument.
It's really interesting because in the Academy, as people, watch each other and start to be self-expressed in different ways, I'm actually, now that you said that, I'm seeing that they're coming and bringing more of themselves. They're bringing movement, they're bringing story. And I know that in the last Harp Time Live that I did, and I'm going to do this again this Thursday or next Thursday, or is it this Thursday? I don't know. The next Thursday that happens. Anyway, that I discovered that I could teach a whole class in how to be expressive with this angel mode of the harp, which is literally anyone off the street. Anyone off the street could play, and are often more self-expressed with this because they can just, it literally is a playground. I don't know, literally it's a playground, but and you can play with gestures. You can, I mean, like, instead of having to go, bum, 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 you can be like, bum, bum, and I'm just like grabbing. And I get that many people, myself included, were like, "Wow, that's not playing. Oh, like, I don't want to do that. I look like an idiot." And yet that could become its whole art form.
Yeah, but as you were doing that, I was thinking about, again, the idea of the harp as an instrument of self-expression is a very different paradigm than the harpist I saw playing in the, Davidson Symphony Orchestra 2 nights ago, her part was beautiful when I heard it. But there, the whole goal isn't self-expression. It's expression of a certain ideal that everyone comes together to express. So again, it's not a wrong paradigm, it's just a different paradigm.
That's really interesting what you just said. So when a composer creates something and has an ideal, then everybody comes together intentionally to create that. And yet I think we see that in the outside world, that without deciding that we are coming together to express that ideal, people feel very constrained by that ideal. Wow.
Yeah, it is a constraint. But again, the key is, and I think someone said this, it's just like that's one aspect of the greater self, or that's kind of down a few.
Right. Okay.
To come together. Like, I'm going to join in tonight. Some friends of ours are having an Irish jam, so I'm going to go and take my harp and I'll join in, and what they want from me there is probably very different than my sitting in my living room playing what John always says are sad, and I say, oh, but they're so soulful.
Right.
Those Irish laments. It's just like, oh, I just get lost in eternity with them, and it's just such but that's probably not what they really want. They're not. We're going to be playing things that are much more dance speed tunes, and I'm going to be struggling to chord along the way. But anyway, that's okay. I mean, I think it's recognizing that there are different things appropriate for different places. But the key is that what is that what you want? I mean, I'm thinking about a friend of ours who is a internationally acclaimed Scottish fiddler, and he started out in a symphony orchestra, and he's so funny. I mean, whenever he's performing, he has a board and he's moving his feet and tapping. And he said, in the symphony orchestra, tapping my foot was frowned upon. I mean, that wasn't in alignment with his truest self and what he wanted with
it's really interesting. I love this conversation. I'm gonna go down and I'm gonna come back up again. But I'm going to say that the composer also has to create utilizing the group paradigm holistically. And I remember, being in a symphony orchestra and thinking, what am I doing in the back? I want to be in the front. What am I doing playing this one part, which I did enjoy playing, and it was an incredible experience. But so there's a holistic vision that the composer is creating for other people to be in. And I want to just pull some of these up. It's not we become that. We already are that in our fullness. The harp is a tool that allows us to focus and channel that aspect of ourselves, right? So it becomes that playground for play. And then I wanted to pull up this because I'm seeing all this start emerge in the academy. I was saying the academy is a safe space for us, and that seems to be part of the, part of what makes it work is having that safety. So
I mean, safety is a basic need. I'm thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You know, there are physical needs and then there's safety needs. And it's not just physical safety, but it's emotional safety, it's psychological
Right,
safety.
right.
Yeah. Then
So
there's love and belonging, then self esteem, then self actualization, or what Jung called individuation. We don't even get there until, safety's got to be in place.
okay, so let's, I know we're coming to the end of our time,
Yeah.
and I really love how much people have been engaging. It's been really fun to read all the comments and have them be part of this. And I think every time they come in, Kathleen and I are like, oh, a new present has just come in. Um, okay, all right, so I'm going to pull this up again. Um, Clearly somebody who's in the academy says the academy is as much and I'm sure this is exactly what's happening in your circle as well, Kathleen. It's
Yeah.
as much the experience of discovering our authenticity as it is learning to play the harp. And I want to get, because I feel like this comment brings us right back to my first thing, which is the access. It's not, because I see this over and over again, that when people sort of break out, they're often breaking into something they could always have done. It was always there. They're often breaking away from the paradigm that they're not good enough, and
Mm-hmm.
breaking into the paradigm of this is beautiful. Whatever it is I'm doing, it's beautiful. And it completely changes everything.
Right.
That one thing.
Right.
And this is like, how do I bring this into every part of my life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think, again, that's what it means to individuate. It means to really live from that authentic center that is beautiful and express that however one wants to express it, whether it's in, the voiceover of the little old witch or the tortoise of discontent, or it's the flamingo dancer, or it's the quiet contemplative self, or it's, the beautiful flower of the field. I mean, it really has to do, if we adopt the paradigm of beauty,
Mm-hmm.
expressing the beauty of who I am in this moment, expressing the beauty of who I am through this role, then there's going to be an energy in it that will make it powerful in a relational way.
Okay. Yes. And well, I'm thinking about everything is born slimy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about one of the first times that I started trying to bring movement at a greater degree into my playing. And I thought, oh, I can just do it. I can just be on stage and I can just go into this dance. And it was completely ineffective. And I felt like a little kid, just like, oh my God, what did I just do? And I noticed that, when I'm exploring, I mean, one of the things that makes the academy work is that we are discovering, and where everyone's looking for what is working, what is opening things up, what when you comment to people, it's not like that was good or that was better. It's all what that opened up for me was,
Mm-hmm.
so that you're seeing what's happening for other people. And I'm thinking how, like, oh my God, this story. One of the most powerful pieces I have ever written is Catcher in the Rye. And
Mm-hmm.
I've only been able to do it with symphony orchestra, and it's got this huge timpani solo in the middle, and it's just so powerful. And when I was first creating it, I was trying to sort of do a half-baked version of it. And I was playing, and there was a friend of mine, it was just a little rehearsal studio, and I did it. And I mean, my heart was out there, and this is what she did. And the piece was dead. It was dead for 5-6 years. I couldn't touch it.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh my God, as we start to be more self-expressed in the world, how do we deal with that? I would have the same.
Well, that person had a lot of power in your psyche because their opinion was more important than your experience. And that's not uncommon. I mean, we all have places
Right.
where we're still feeling very fragile.
Mm.
And, we do give ourselves up because other people don't see the beauty of what it is we're trying to say. And again, once we start wanting to shape something to share with the outside world and the public,
Mm.
that's a different thing than expressing something because it's within oneself. And so I think, again,
Mm.
knowing the paradigm
Mm.
and I think there was a comment somewhere along the way that that there can be multiple paradigms at work at one time, and
I
that
see.
we do have to again be conscious of what's the greater paradigm. I mean, for me, the greater paradigm is grounding in my larger self to the best of my
Right.
ability, and that's the greater paradigm than say the paradigm of playing in a way that will please these people. um, doesn't mean that other paradigm isn't always there, or isn't present.
There's a book called The Wonderful Visit. It's by H.G. Wells, and it's about an angel that falls to earth, and a vicar, whatever that is, a vicar finds him, and there's one scene where this angel is playing at a party where people are playing music, and he's up there just improvising, and the vicar is like in this ecstasy, and everybody else is like, what is he doing? And like, and as you were speaking, and as someone said, wrote something about, bringing, just taking yourself, grounding yourself, and being, being out there. And Kathleen, you were talking about shaping things for other people, and we were talking about what's the paradigm out there, and the symphony, and how that's one vision and an ideal, and how then that gets put into the society as a whole. I don't know, I just thought of that book and that moment. And what does it say to me? Well, first of all, it says to me that, self-expression is divine. There's something,
Mhm.
at least that's what this book says, that story says, and that it will be misunderstood. And so what does that mean? I mean, I guess that says to me that places like the academy, or where I learned what to do in the academy, the safe places, those are places of refuge for your self-expression to develop.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And we need those safe places, And I'm aware of our time, so we're going to have to
Right.
bring this to a close.
Right.
But yeah, we need places that are safe. And again, that in and of itself is a paradigm, right? And when you ask your question, are you living in the wrong paradigm?
Right.
The
Right.
first question to ask might just be, is this a place I'm safe? Whether it's a relationship,
Right.
whether it's a habit pattern of your own,
Right.
am I safe here? Because if we're not safe, then there's something about the paradigm, the setting that needs to change.
Well, I'm also thinking at the end of this, as we come to the close, I'm thinking, well, I can have a little package of paradigms that I can take with me. And I can walk into the paradigm that I am speaking to one person, and that one person who needs to hear the tortoise of discontent, or, a simple song today, that person will hear that. And anyone else, I don't know. I mean, that's not who I'm speaking to at that moment.
Right.
So,
That's right.
and that I can create that space. So I don't know. I'll take this into my life, and play with it. Um, okay. And someone is saying, thank you. Uh, oh, whoops. A lot of people. This is like, wow, an amazing thread. I wish we could pull everything up, but that a lot of people are walking through life asleep, so they won't resonate to that higher frequency. And these places like the academy, or the circle, or places that are made to be safe, amplify those frequencies of that allow us to be self-expressed.
Right. Mm.
Well, thank you, Kathleen. Thank you. Just thank you for going into these questions with me, and bringing, the specific experience of your life. It makes all the difference. I mean, even when you talk about, the party that you're going to go to and the music that is divine for you, and realizing it's not going to fit there. They're going to be like looking at their watch, just like in that book.
That's right.
And to understand that, and wow, to take this idea of the ideal of the orchestra and where that is in the world, and how we then don't fit. Okay, I just have so much to think about. Thank you. I'm really excited. We've had a lot of days we couldn't meet, and I'm just excited to look forward to meeting again. Any last thing you want to say, Kathleen?
Yeah, check in with the paradigm you're living, and aspire to express the beauty of who you are everywhere.
Okay. All right.
That's my sacred intention for myself.
Okay, and I want to go way, way, way back to one of the earlier comments about light, like letting that light shine through,
Yeah.
and also take with me a little, like, knowing that I have these paradigms to pull out and to inhabit.
Yeah.
Thank you, and
Yeah.
thank you, everyone. This was really exciting, and I look forward. Will we be meeting again next week?
Next week.
Beautiful. Okay, we'll see you all.